Hello everybody, Janet Urban here, founder of Friends in Film. Welcome to our podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to give you insights that you will not learn anywhere, not in film school, not online, not from anybody, even people on film sets will not know what I'm teaching you because we have studied how to go very fast into the film industry and create a career out of it. And that is what this podcast is about, and that is what the A-List program is about, which is our main flagship program that all these people all over the world are doing to work in the film industry. So enjoy today's podcast, and thank you so much for listening. Let me ask you a question. How far do you believe? How far will you allow yourself to believe in yourself, in what's possible for you? See, I talk to people all day long. I coach people all day long that want the most amazing career in the film industry. How committed are you from 0 to 10? They're a 10. And what do you want to do? I want to become a well-known actor. I want to become a well-known director. I want to change the world. I want to be an example to other people in the world and get my ideas out there and tell stories that move people. And then I ask them, okay, so what are you going to do? And they're like, well, I'm just going to keep working on my script. Or I'm going to try to shoot my movie. And I'm like, okay, so what's the budget of the movie? It doesn't have a budget. Well, what's the plans for the movie? I don't really know. I'm going to just try to shoot the best movie I can. I'm like, what are we talking about here? Here you have the goal of $100,000 in the film industry as a director, as an actor, as a writer. Big frickin' goals. But when it comes down to what you need to be believing about yourself, you've got very little clarity on how you will actually be able to achieve that objective. And that's in an uncomfortable place to be. And that's something that we can solve. And this is what we are not taught in school. Nobody teaches us. How do we think? How do we generate the thinking that allows us to truly believe that we can create $100,000 in value in the professional film industry? It's the thinking that is going to get us there. There is nothing else. There's the film industry and a bunch of shoots. There's a bunch of professionals that are willing to give people opportunities once they step up and are at that level where they can produce. So that's what the fact is. There's a bunch of shoots out there and a bunch of people that have experience, that are professionals, that are willing and able to give you opportunities when you step up to them. So that's why it is so important when I ask you, if your goal is to make $100,000 in the film industry and to become a well-known actor, director, writer, and you would like to do this within the next couple years, how do you think about yourself when you think to yourself? What kind of thoughts are just there that are just appearing when you think to yourself? Now, I think a lot of us are thinking thoughts that are not going to get us to $100,000. When I ask somebody, what are you going to do to make $100,000? And they're like, I'm going to shoot a film. And then I ask them what their budget is. And they're like, I don't know. These are not thoughts that go with becoming a well-known actor, director, a well-known anybody in the business. And if you can't see yourself doing all this, then you need to picture yourself with that kind of success. Because if you're not picturing yourself with success, then that's exactly what you're creating, nothing. So how far are you willing to let yourself believe in your dream and in yourself? How far are you willing to decide to believe? I think that how far most of us are comfortable in believing is very small. For instance, if I said to you, do you believe that you can make $100,000 this year with my program? Most of you would say, seems too good to be true. Like if you don't believe that you can make $100,000 in the industry, that's because you're not generating thoughts that will allow you to believe that. You're not thinking, I can grow my capabilities. I can meet people on film sets and learn from them. The most important thing of all is believing that you can make $100,000 in the film industry as a well-known director, well-known actor, well-known writer, and then develop the thinking that makes it so. That's the most important thing. You're not using your brain properly. You're using your brain to think small thoughts, to think of whatever comes in your mind you believe. Like, oh, other people are making passion projects. Maybe that's what I should do. Nobody's asking you, well, then what comes after that, after you make it? How many people are making like a living just shooting short films? What I'm seeing is people that are working on film sets, that are moving up within the industry on film sets, that are getting that responsibility of directing films, DPing films, doing costumes for films, and acting in films. I'm seeing people on film sets get these opportunities. I'm not seeing anybody from the outside shooting short films that are going to the small film festivals getting these opportunities. I'm not seeing anybody handing money to people that are not in the business to make $1 million feature film. Without having any real goal in mind, you're going to be mediocre. It's mediocre thinking to stumble into something and just see what happens. James Cameron doesn't stumble into something and see what happens. He plans, he creates, he knows how much money he's going to make from it, he knows who's going to be involved in it. It's not too good to be true. It's the way that it works when you are thinking and acting like a professional. So my goal in doing these podcast episodes is to have you start to think as a professional. Start to think of yourself in a way and generate the thinking of a professional that has big goals, that's not afraid to say them, that doesn't think that it's too good to be true, that's committed to creating those goals. Even though you might say, well, I don't know. No, you tell yourself you do know. And then your brain looks for evidence for that. Now, what is that? That's belief. That's believing that you do know, that the knowledge, the belief is in there. It just hasn't been solidified yet. It hasn't been created yet and repeated enough times where it's like totally solid. I don't think so. There is no downside in believing this much higher version of yourself that can make $100,000 easily in the film industry. So how do you want to think about making your $100,000 in the film industry? Do you want to think it's easy? Do you want to think it's hard? Most of us are thinking that it's hard. It's so competitive before you've even seen what you can do on these film sets, before you've even been on a bunch of film sets to see that, hey, you've got a lot going for you. You've got some brilliant ideas in your mind. You've got some ability to do some really great work on these film sets. So your belief starts to shift. It doesn't seem so pie in the sky what I'm telling you. 100 grand, becoming a well-known person doing a craft. Yeah, I can see it. Other people do it. Now, if you're like, hey, I'm not about the money. I'm about the craft. The reason why you want to have a money goal is because it asks more of you. It asks you to create the thinking that goes with creating that much value in the film industry. That much value out there in the world. $100,000 that people pay you in exchange for your ideas, your time, your hard work. People don't just give you $100,000 for nothing. They give you $100,000. It's an exchange of value that you have given them. You've produced that much value in the world that's worth that much money. If you don't want to even say a money goal, oh, I'll just see what I can do, then you're going to be creating very little value in the world. You don't want to leave this up to chance. This is your career that's going to give you your whole life. I mean, your whole life is going to come from the film industry and what you're able to create. Your whole sense of self is coming from what you're creating out there in the film industry. You want success. So you want to think successful thoughts that will give you success. All of a sudden, you're not going to be happy with thinking thoughts like, I don't know, it just seems too difficult. I don't know, I'm just going to work on my script this summer. It's not about the money. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for the impact. The impact comes from having your ideas out there on the massive scale. That means in order to get them out there on the massive scale, that you have to be out there on the massive scale. And the only way to be a James Cameron and be out there on the massive scale is to become professional. Professional is your platform. The income that you're going to make comes with that platform. So expect to make the money. There's no downside to expecting to make the money. There's a big downside to not expecting it. So here's why it's so important. Your thinking is what creates that result. So $100,000 a year is a result that you have created with your thinking. That's why it is very important to look at what are the thoughts that go with $100,000 a year. And what are the thoughts that are creating the result of making, say, $7,000 a year in the film industry. So the thoughts that are creating the result of $7,000 in the film industry might be something like, I can work on indie films. I can get paid $200 to $300 per day. I can find the low-end work. I'm happy just learning. I'm taking my time. I'll see what I can do. But when you're thinking $100,000 in the industry, say as a gaffer, what kind of skills would I want to learn today that will allow me to be recognized by the top people and start finding mentors? How do I need to be thinking to be at the level that I want to be at, $100,000 a year as a gaffer? See, a $100,000 a year person is going to have different expectations, a different strategy. They're going to act differently. They're going to use different language. They're going to dress differently. They're going to get up differently in the morning and have different kinds of conversations throughout the day because they are a $100,000 a year person. They expect it. That's who they are. And a $7,000 a year person that's starting off in the film industry, that's pretty happy with their result of $7,000, still trying to find their way, they're going to have a certain way that they act. They're going to have certain expectations for themselves. They're going to have certain kinds of people that they're surrounded with, that they can be surrounded with for the next 10 years, that are the people that are doing the indie films, that are doing the corporate video, that are doing videography. So that's fine if that's your goal, but my main point is to be intentional about the goal that you want to have and the money that you want to make so that you can get there faster. See, the difference between the $7,000 in the film industry and $100,000 in the film industry and $1 million in the film industry, what's the difference? It's only the thinking. It's only who you're being. So between $7,000 and $100,000 in the film industry, the thinking, what is that thinking? That's a great question. So the way I like to look at it, it's like there's like this big gray area of thoughts that haven't even been thought yet that go between $7,000 and $100,000 in the film industry. It's all these thoughts that you've not even had yet. It's all these learnings that you've never had yet. It's these ways that you see yourself and see other people, the ways that you are being, showing up in the world. That's the gray area. You're not being that $100,000 version of yourself because you never thought it yet. You never had all the thoughts that go with that $100,000 a year version of yourself. But if you want to go there fast, then you need to be that, show up that way, act that way, become that. Then you can go there fast. If you expect to make $7,000, maybe $10,000, maybe $15,000, maybe $20,000, then that's exactly what you're going to get. But if you expect to make $100,000 and then you're on your way to $500,000 and then $1 million a year, then you're going to show up a lot differently. And all of that gray area, all of the thinking that has not been thought yet, you're going to have it. You're going to prompt your brain to create it. And if you're asking right now, Janet, how? The how will be learned as you do it. The how is created by deciding what it is that you want and creating the thinking that creates that result. There's no result that you can't create. You can create any result that you want in your life. You can make as much money as you want in your life. You can become a millionaire very fast if you have the thoughts that create that result. And there is no exactly right actions. The right actions to take are the ones that produce that result. So don't be worried about messing it up. What you should be worried about is not taking the right actions, not expecting that you can make this money, not believing in yourself. So if you're not believing that you can make $100,000 in the film industry, what are you believing? That you can make $7,000, that you can make your film, that this film is somehow going to get you into the industry. You're not allowing your brain to blast through all that gray space of thinking that hasn't been created yet that will allow you to actually get that result of $100,000. And when you are at the result of $100,000 a year in the film industry, then what? You're already moved on to that $500,000 a year in the film industry. You're already connecting with people that think even bigger. You're already aligning yourself with those people, with those ideas, finding those opportunities, and your craft is also at that level that you're making that kind of money. You're that good. But at 100,000, you're already on to the next goal of 500,000 because that's how you roll. But if you're still starting in the very beginning of making like zero to say $20,000, the wake-up call is to realize that your thinking is producing that result. And without having a money goal that's going to prompt your brain into thinking differently, you're going to stay right at 20 grand in the film industry and you're going to be mediocre. You're going to have a mediocre career because you got mediocre thinking. You're going to find that the results in your life pretty much fit that identity of how you see yourself. So the amount of money that you have in your bank account pretty much matches this identity that you've created for yourself because you've produced that amount of money in your bank account. You produced that job that you're doing right now, Monday through Friday. You've produced the relationships that you have in your life, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your friends. It's all coming from your identity, how you see yourself, and what you should have in your life, and the amount of money that you should have in your life. But what if you want more? The fastest way to get to more is to change your identity. And your identity is really just thoughts and beliefs that you've repeated over and over that you say is true that apply to you. If you want to change your results, if you want to change your career, if you want to change the amount of money in your bank account, then all you need to do is simply change who you are to be able to create those results. And how you do that is you change your thinking. I definitely changed my identity. I didn't like my identity. I love talking about this because people can change. And you've got to be the one that changes. Nobody can change you, but you can decide to change. Why I decided to change is I didn't really like who I was being. And I knew that I wanted to attract people to me that were different than me. Like I wanted to attract people that were adventurous, outgoing, mountaineering, natural, wildlife kind of people. I wanted to be around artists and creators, and I really wasn't that. I was a copier salesperson. So my thoughts were mostly around quotas and business. And I didn't want to be that. That wasn't going to give me the life and the people and the friendships that I wanted to have. So I knew I needed to change my identity. I did not know how to change my identity. So what I did was I quit my job, I bought a round the world ticket, and I started traveling. Then my identity changed to be a traveler, a world traveler. Oh, that felt a lot better. That was a lot closer to meeting the people that I wanted to meet, and to having that adventurous sense of self that was always learning and growing and knowing. That gray space from copier salesperson to world traveler, that was really getting filled up with all sorts of new thoughts and new ideas and new conversations and new places that I've been, and reading books about the places I was going, you know, the wonders of the world, Siem Reap, Angkor Wat, the pyramids, the Valley of the Gods, the monasteries in Thailand, the monasteries in India and Tibet, Leh, Ladakh, all these amazing places. And all of a sudden, none of those thoughts, none of those places, none of that version of me experiencing the world like that even existed as a copier salesperson. But all of a sudden, in these new places, I'm becoming somebody different. I'm taking in the information differently than a copier salesperson would. I'm taking it in as a world traveler. Now I am becoming a world traveler. That's who I'm being. And it felt like a fit because I believed that that's who I was. So I created thinking that allowed me to be that. Then the next step was to become a wildlife filmmaker. And I believed that I could become a wildlife filmmaker because I believed that I could generate the thinking that would allow me to join that tribe, to have interest in the things that the wildlife filmmakers have interest in, to have that knowledge, to learn those skills, to go to those places and live that lifestyle. It didn't seem so far-fetched to me to be able to travel around the world in a helicopter shooting wildlife films. Other people have done it. I'd already been traveling around the world myself. All of a sudden, that did not seem so far-fetched. So then generating those thoughts that made that true, that made that happen, wasn't so difficult. That's why when I say to you guys, 100 grand in the film industry, many of us are just going, that just seems too good to be true. It seems pie in the sky. And I'm saying, why? Why would you believe that? Why do you want to believe that's pie in the sky? Why not believe that I can do that? That's possible. In fact, it's very important with my goals and the life that I want to have to believe that, to start to create all of the thinking, that gray space area, all the thinking and experiences and people and knowledge and building, and start to fill that up so that all of a sudden, before I know it, I'm making $100,000 in the film industry. In fact, I know from working on film sets all the frickin' time that they need good people. Yes, there's a lot of other good people that they are already working with that can do the job. But there's only one you, and you're working with people that see you do that job. Of course, you're going to be hired for that job. You're capable. You're doing it. You're connected. You're on film sets. This is what you do. You do it well. Of course, that's what you're going to do in your career. It doesn't matter that there's other people that are also doing it. There's plenty of work out there. And you know how to connect. You're thinking intentionally about what you have to offer. You're thinking intentionally about the relationships that you're creating and the career that you want. You've got direction. You've got a goal. And you're using your brain in that way. Most people are not. So I knew that I was going to work for National Geographic. I knew it. So therefore, I became that. I was a National Geographic filmmaker before I was even hired for National Geographic. And when I met people that worked for National Geographic, I had that persona about me. I was being that. And when I got enough experience where I knew that I wouldn't mess up a National Geographic shoot, that I'd been on enough shoots, I had the equipment, I had the knowledge, I knew what I was doing, then I reached out to people that I had already met, and I set all of that up as well, because I met them even before I knew that they could hire me. I put myself in those positions, in those places where those people were, so they knew who I was, knowing that I would be reaching back out to them again, and they would know me already, and then they would start hiring me. I knew that they would, because I knew that I would. I knew that I would get that good that they would hire me. How do you need to be thinking about yourself to be able to get that kind of growth so that you can get hired for those kind of jobs and have that life? That's really the question here. It's possible for anybody. There's no downside to believing that you can have the most amazing life in the film industry. I know that I got to where I am, this $3 million house, this career that I'm in demand, after doing this for 25 years and being 57 years old now. I know that I can work in this business as long as I want because I know how to generate connections and keep in touch with people, and that I'm good. I believe it. I expect it. And with this belief, with these very powerful thoughts, the world shows up that way. I don't expect to fail. I expect to succeed, and poof, I succeed. I didn't expect to not work for National Geographic. I expected to work for National Geographic, and I did. I'm creating all those results. Those are results from my thinking. And this is the most important thing that I can teach you. Choose your thoughts to create the results that you want in your life. That's where it's at. So have a beautiful day, everybody. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for listening. And if you want to take your career to the next level in the film industry, go to friendsinfilm.com/join. That's friendsinfilm.com/join. You can sign up for our mini course, learn about the A-list model, and then you can take it all the way and do the A-list program. So that's friendsinfilm.com/join. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day, everybody.